Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I was sent a fresh prototype copy of Forest Guardians by Shepard Kit, so let's get it to the table. Forest Guardians is a tile placement game all about the forest and wildlife in Taiwan. Players play as rangers who work on rescuing wildlife, reforestation, and respond to any threats in the forest. Players will develop their ranger skills throughout the game and become a true guardian of the forest. The game is recommended for players age 8 and up and plays in 30 to 50 minutes. So let's set up the game. The starting tile with 3 connected hexes is placed face up in the center of the table. You will place the illegal logger standee on his base hex. All animal standees are placed nearby. The resource cards are shuffled and placed face down in a pile. Animal cards are separated into 2 piles according to this extra symbol seen on the cards here, and each of these stacks are shuffled, and then the pile with this icon is stacked on top of the pile without. Terrain tiles are separated into piles of altitude and placed nearby, these 1 hexes being the highest, as in the mountains, and these 3 tiles are the lowest in the flats. In a 2-player game, setup is a little bit different where you will need to remove 4 regular high altitude tiles and you won't be using any of the low altitude terrain tiles for the game. Each player will choose a ranger and take the player board and standee. Now the player board has 2 sides. Side A is used for the basic game and side B is used for a more advanced game. Choose what side everyone will use to play with. On the board, the top shows the steps that you will make during your turn, and there are 3 types of trees and planting conditions for each type listed on this left side here. You will place the wooden trees of your color on top of each number, and a wooden cube will be placed in the 4 corresponding locations for upgrades. These are your skill upgrades that you can choose from here on the bottom. These ones on the left will increase your hand size to hold more resources. At the beginning of the game, you can only hold a maximum of 3 resource cards, but your hand can increase by 1 each time you upgrade this skill. This other upgrade increases how many actions that you can take on your turn. You will start the game with taking 1 action, but for each one of these upgrades, you will take an additional action on every turn. The last thing on your player board is the listed player actions that you can take on your turn, and I will explain these here in a little bit. The goal of the game is to plant trees, put out fires, help animals, and protect the environment, and even provide a better place for these animals to live in. Whoever has the most points by doing these things at the end of the game will become the Great Forest Guardian. Let's go over the gameplay now. So the youngest player will be the start player, and turns will rotate in a clockwise direction. And a turn consists of 3 steps: forest exploration, player action, and resource replenishment. Let's go over the forest exploration first. So the active player will draw a single terrain tile and add it to the existing tiles on the table. When doing this, you will need to add it to where it touches at least 2 existing tiles. If this tile shows a special icon, then this special event will occur. These special events consist of animal encounters, a forest fire, or even an illegal logger. With an animal encounter, you will draw a card from the animal deck and you'll place the matching animal standee on that terrain tile. Make sure you take the animal standee whose color bottom matches the color of the point value on that card. If the special action shows a fire icon, oh no! A fire icon is placed on the tile and each tile that is touching that tile as well. All trees on those tiles are returned to their owners. If there are any animal tiles that haven't been rescued yet, they will stay there on the hex, but for the animals that have already been rescued and released, that animal will return back to its rescuer. Also, every tile has the possibility to catch on fire, except for the illegal logger's base tile. If the special action shows a chainsaw, well then that's that illegal logger that we've been talking about, and it begins to cut down trees. The illegal logger will cut down trees from their base tile in a straight line to wherever you place this new tile. The new tile can disobey the rule of touching 2 other tiles, so you can place it in a direction that forms a straight line from the base and only needs to touch 1 other tile. After placing the tile, the logger will cut down any player's trees that are on the tiles between his base and the tile that had just been placed. These trees are returned to their owners, and the illegal logger is placed back on his base, lurking to strike again. After you place a tile onto the map, you will then choose a player action to perform. You can plant a tree, put out a fire, help an animal, or swap resource cards. When planting a tree, you will need to satisfy the conditions listed to plant that type of tree. You'll pay the cost and you'll plant the tree on any of its allowed terrain tiles. You will gain the number of points uncovered by planting trees at the end of the game. And when planting trees, you will start in the leftmost spot. When paying resources to plant trees, and it shows additional cards like the 2 and the 3, these can be of any resource, they just all need to match. So it'll be a pair or a 3 of a kind. You will then check the allowed type of terrain where you can plant this tree, and you will place it on the map. You can never plant any trees on any of the special terrain tiles, and you can see that different trees have different number of resource costs and also different terrain that they are allowed to be planted on. When placing trees back onto your board for certain events that happen in the game, you will need to cover up the rightmost revealed number of that tree type. You'll be losing those points until you are able to replant that tree again. If you want to plant on a terrain tile that another player has already planted on, you can. However, you will need to pay an extra resource card of the same type to do so. Whenever you place a tree on the board that has a connected wooden cube next to it, you have earned an upgrade skill. Place it on one of the bottom upgrades, and that new skill can be used immediately. Again, this is how you can hold more resource cards, or you can take more actions per turn. Both are very useful. When taking the action to put out fire, you can pay 1 water resource card to remove any fire token. The fire token is then placed near your player board, and it's worth 1 point each at the end of the game. You also cannot plant a tree when there is a fire token on that tile. When helping an animal, you will need to use 2 actions. This can be done both on the same turn if possible, or on separate turns if you have not unlocked those upgrades yet. You will first rescue the animal by placing the animal from the board map onto your animal shelter on your player board. You will then need to release the animal in a suitable terrain type that is listed on the card that animal requires and wants. After releasing that animal, you will then take that animal's card that gives you points for the end of the game. These animals will also occupy 2 or 3 tiles when being released. The other animals can't share any of the terrain tiles other rescued animals are occupying. If a special event card affects the tile that an animal is on, then you will take that animal back into your shelter and you return the card, temporarily losing the points until you place out that animal again. You can only pick up 1 animal to put in your shelter at a time, and once you rescue the animal, you can never abandon or swap it out. The last action that you can perform is swapping resource cards. You will discard any number of resource cards in your hand and draw that many from the deck. After a player performs their action or actions, they will replenish their hand up to their maximum card limit, which is 3 at the beginning of the game, but you can go up to as much as 5 if you unlock those upgrades. Players continue taking turns consisting of these 3 steps until a player plants all of their trees, at which point everyone else takes 1 more turn and the game ends, or if a player draws the last terrain tile, then the game ends at the end of that player's turn. Players add up their points from planting trees that are listed on their player boards, plus the number of fire tokens from putting out fires, plus the value of their animal cards for rescuing these animals. And whoever has the highest amount of points becomes the Great Forest Guardian. If you think you have the basic game down, then you can use the advanced rules using side B of the player board. Each player will have their own added ability that other players can't use, and will also be sending out their ranger using their ranger standee. Setup is the same as the basic game. Just take a look on the bottom right of your player board. This hat icon here is a new action, sending out your ranger. And when doing this action, you can place your ranger on a tile, and that player is now unaffected by any special events. This can prevent forest fires, it can prevent the illegal logger from cutting down your trees on that tile. It will even protect other players' trees if they're on that same tile. Besides that, all the other actions are the same. Let me highlight some of these new ranger abilities. Julia is the animal expert and can have 2 animal tokens in her shelter at the same time. She will gain an extra point for each animal card that she has at the end of the game and for each animal still in the animal shelter. Jack is the firefighter. His trees never get burnt down. The fire token will still be placed on the tile where his tree's at, but his tree will never come off the board. It'll just stay there on that tile. If other players have a tree on that tile as well, it will then be burnt down by the fire, but not his. At the end of the game, he gains an extra point for each fire token that he has. When playing Fluffy, you can plant this tree here, which is called Calicidris formosana, on any of the mountain terrain tiles. And at the end of the game, you will gain 2 extra points for each of those trees planted on a mountain tile. Bean is the master gardener, and she can plant her trees on terrain tiles that other players have planted on already without paying the extra resource costs. She, however, doesn't have any extra bonus scoring at the end of the game. As you can see, the advanced game can add some new strategy to the game, and eventually you can play each of these characters and have a totally different experience. This is just such a great, cute game that captures great mechanics used in modern board games. The way the board is built by placing tiles and expanding the area and randomly getting tiles that provide special events. Your goal starts with planting trees and specific terrain tiles, and that goal continues till the end of the game, but each game presents with special events differently, so putting out fires might not be a big deal in one game compared to another where you're trying your darnest to put out those fires. Same as rescuing animals. Some games, the game gives you plenty of opportunities to collect and release wildlife, where others, it's hard to get those animals out to where they need to go while still being productive with the other goals. The illegal logger is also a great addition that requires strategy in how and where you place your terrain tiles, because no one likes it when he comes and cuts down your trees. And be careful with the illegal logger and how you use him, because the next time that he strikes, it might be payback from another player. So try to place your tiles and trees on hexes where the logger can't get ya. The game builds in a way where you're not waiting on things to do, but also not flooded with too many that you're not scoring any points each turn. As the game ramps up, so does your character, as you gain upgrades that will help you keep up with the game. You just need to pay some attention to what trees you need to plant to unlock those upgrades, because you will be able to increase your efficiency each time that you get an upgrade. I really love the theme in the game, saving Taiwan's forests, rescuing wildlife, and being a great ranger and becoming a forest guardian. The components in this prototype are fantastic, and I'm not sure how close the final product will be compared to this, but know that the prototype that I have feels and looks just like a finished product. The game is a great family-friendly game that we had a blast playing with our 5-year-old. So hurry and grab your hiking boots to save the forest and wildlife and become the Forest Guardian in Forest Guardians by Shepard Kit. Again, this is Boardgame Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.